This episode is proudly sponsored by HASA, the trusted choice for liquid chlorine. It's better because it offers the highest purity, works instantly, and contains no added CYA. By the bottom feeder, professional-grade battery-powered swimming pool vacuum system, it sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off the bottom feeder with code DVB100. Skimmer, trusted by over 30,000 pool service professionals across North America. Skimmer software helps you save time, grow revenue, and boost your 5-star reviews. Whether you're just starting out or expanding your team, Skimmer's easy-to-use tools and expert support have you covered. Upgrade your business in 2025 with Skimmer. Try Skimmer for 30 days for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over some essential spare parts you should have on your truck. And this is something that I highly recommend you carry. Plenty of spare parts. I have giant plastic containers full of all kinds of parts that I've acquired over the years or extra parts I've picked up. This saves you a lot of time going back to your supplier for something. And these are some of the essential ones that I would recommend having on your pool truck. And this is good for just about any service area. Join my coaching program and take your pool service to the next level. Connect with other pool pros in your area, gain valuable knowledge, and transform your business with personalized one-on-one advice from me. With over 36 years of experience, I'm here to help you succeed like never before. Learn more at poolguycoaching.com. I'll quickly highlight a new website button I have on my site. If you go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, on the very bottom there's a Pool Guy Gear button. And I do have some essential gear that I think you should have, along with spare parts. I have my polarized sunglasses listed there. I have the nitro work gloves that I use. I have the boots that I use. They're waterproof Columbia boots. I also have the cold weather gloves. And I have the channel locks that I use, which come in super handy for getting chlorinator lids off. It's really tough salt cell unions. Of course, you want to use a rag when you're using this on there. You would want to have 2 of these for each union on each side. And then I also have the Filter Saver pool socks, which are for the skimmer basket. Not really something you would wear, but I have it there along with the channel locks because people ask me for these particular items and I just listed it next to the Pool Guy gear. And I guess that's kind of gear as well because you're using it at the pool and it does help you. So I wanted to highlight that button again on the website. Pool Guy gear is at the very bottom. Click on that and you're going to see some of the essential products I recommend. Now this list I put together about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's a little older list. It has Pool Corp SKU numbers. So if you do want a copy of this list, I can definitely email it to you. It may be outdated. I'm looking at it again here. There's a few products that no longer are stocked by Pool Corp. But you get the idea. Most of the SKU numbers should still work for Pool Corp in their system. Even though this list, again, is a little older and I haven't updated it. I just haven't had time, really. But I think you can still find it pretty helpful. If you email me at david@swimmingpoollearning.com, again, that's david@swimmingpoollearning.com, I'll send you the list over to you. And then you can, of course, edit it as you please. It's going to be in Word format. And then maybe fix some of the part numbers. And if you wanted to do the whole thing and edit it and get it back to me with all the new part numbers, that would be appreciated. But I don't think anyone's going to take the time to do that. But I'll start with chemicals and then I'll work my way down to spare parts because I think it's essential to have everything on your truck. I mentioned parts, but chemicals also are really important to have spare chemicals. The easiest way, in my opinion, to carry spare chlorine, it's a product that is not a big seller and is something that a lot of people don't use on their pool route. But I like it because it's 1, powerful. It's pH neutral. 3, it's easy to store and has a really long shelf life, probably just as long as trichlor tablets. And this is dichlor. Now, one thing about dichlor that you should know right off the bat, it actually has more cyanuric acid in it than trichlor tablets. So I think it's somewhere around 60% cyanuric acid and 40% chlorine. Why I like dichlor, and this is why I consider it a spare part, you can get a 25-pound bucket or even a 50-pound bucket, put it on the back of your truck, and kind of just forget about it. it's there. So if you run out of liquid chlorine one day, or you run out of cal hypo, depending on which one you use, if you use both, you'll have this bucket of dichlor sitting there that you could utilize. Now, I'm an old school pool guy, and when we ran out of chlorine back in the day, we would just take our trichlor tablets and grind them up. That's why I kind of like the ones that are wrapped, because you could take a rubber mallet and you can pound those down and make a trichlor powder. But that's not safe for every pool surface type. And dichlor is, and it's a lot easier than dealing with the toxic fumes and smashing tablet bags when you're out of chlorine. I suppose you can just go to your supplier and get more chlorine, but that takes you out of your route. It's really something you don't want to do. You can go to Home Depot and get some of those weak liquid chlorine cases there. But in my opinion, if you have the spare chlorine on your truck, you would never have to do that. So I don't use the dichlor as a sanitizer. Technically, I just use it as a spare chemical. And if you get a 50-pound bucket, that's great. You're going to easily get through your day if you run out of chemicals. So a 50-pound or 25-pound bucket of dichlor is essential, and definitely want to keep that on your truck. I think, sometimes you run out of essential things like diatomaceous earth when you're doing your filter cleaning. That does happen to me. You can get by with maybe lighter DE in the filters and recharge it the following week. I've done that before, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend carrying spare DE on your truck. It's not really essential in my opinion, but as far as chlorine, definitely want to carry that on your truck. As far as a way to raise the pH up rapidly, I really like the 20 mule team borax in place of the soda ash. I tend to find the soda ash bag bulky, and then I do put it in buckets, but then I forget to refill the buckets sometimes. So it's always nice to have a couple of the 20 mule team borax in the back of your truck. I keep it in the bed of my truck, not the bed, the cab of my truck, I should say, along with my other parts. And to have that in case you get to a pool where the pH is really low and you check your soda ash and you're out of it, I definitely would recommend having some 20 mule team borax. I don't necessarily would recommend carrying extra muriatic acid, because if you don't have the acid one week for the pool, I don't think it's the end of the world. That's not something that is going to be earth shattering, but you definitely want to carry extra base to raise the pH up if you need it. And you want to also carry some extra chlorine. I wouldn't recommend carrying baking soda as your base, because technically that's to raise alkalinity and not pH. It's not going to be highly effective as the 20 mule team borax. You can get that at Walmart or at Target in the laundry aisle. I guess Home Depot probably carries it as well, and carry that in your truck. Just get a couple boxes to put them in the back seat of your truck, and you'll have the extra base back there. As far as other products that you would want to have, of course, you would want to have maybe a spare Pool RX unit, black or blue unit, to have that in there. I always carry a couple booster packs as well. If you are a Pool RX user, you would want to have that. And that way, if you run into problems with algae, you have something instantly on there. The sodium bromide, I think a lot of people are moving away from that, mainly because it's hard to find. I believe there's probably even a ban on it in some areas. I heard someone say that they banned it in parts of California, or maybe the whole state, or maybe it's banned nationally. I haven't really followed up on it because I don't really use sodium bromide as much as I used to. I mainly use the Pool RX, or I'll use a phosphate enzyme kind of combination to treat algae. But yes, I'll admit I'm an old school person that used to carry a 25-pound bucket of sodium bromide in the back of my truck. So I never really had a problem using the product, but I do know that there are a lot of questions about it now, and it's not something that is PC anymore in the industry. But definitely you want to have extra algicide. I mean, there's nothing wrong with carrying a bottle of Polyquat 60 and having that in your truck to treat algae. It works fairly effectively. To have some kind of algicide is kind of crucial, because then you can treat the algae faster. I also recommend carrying spare poles, nets, and brushes. This is not really that excessive. You probably would want to have 2 leaf rakes anyway in your truck. One, you can get maybe a fine leaf rake for the sand silt. A lot of different manufacturers make that one. Or just carry 2 different leaf rakes. You can carry a Red Baron and maybe carry a Piranha leaf rake in your truck, because you may forget it at a customer's house, or it may tear and rip, and then you're kind of out of luck at that point. So always have 2. Same with your pool pole. If you ever drop your pole in the pool, if you don't have a spare pole to get it out, you're out of luck there. And a lot of times your pole may break on you. You may leave it somewhere. It might fall off your truck, which is unfortunate if it does that. or it may even get stolen out of your truck. That's happened to members of my group, especially if it's a carbon fiber pole. So having a spare pole is really crucial there. I also recommend having spare brushes on your truck just in case. I've dropped my brush somewhere before, not even knowing where it was. I even went back one time. I've kind of lost my pool brush a few times over the years, but one time I went right back to the account. I'm like, it's got to be here. It must be somewhere by the gate, or it must be somewhere here, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. So having a spare brush is great to have on your truck. It's always good to carry the stainless steel algae brushes as well. I think they come in really handy. I like the A&B 6-inch algae brush. That's really good for getting that hard algae off of pools. Never want to use it in a fiberglass or vinyl pool, however, but it does come in handy. But definitely have a spare brush on you in case you drop it or it gets lost. Switching to some parts, if you have rainbow chlorinators, which are really popular in California, you want to also have a lot of spare parts. So the 8-inch tubing is great to have. It rolls up, it fits under your truck seat pretty easy. The elbow check valve is definitely something important because this gets clogged up all the time with the chlorine, trichlor residue, and that needs to be replaced for them to work properly. I also have other parts listed here. The O-ring, the Viton chlorinator lid O-ring, that wears out also. It's R172009. Again, I can send you this list. It's quite extensive. Some of the part numbers may not work any longer, but a lot of the part numbers probably do work. And I have, of course, the chlorinator parts that I mentioned here. Then if you want to, and this is something that I highly recommend you do, carry enough pump lid O-rings so that you have the lid O-ring for just about every pump on your route, or you should have it for every pump on your route. So I carry pump lid O-rings for the Hayward Super 2 pumps. Also the Whisper Flow is definitely something you want to carry. I believe there are 2 O-rings for that. There's an older one for the old O-ring, the Purex one, and then there's another one for the thicker one, which I have both listed under here, Whisper Flow and my pump parts. For the timer, you want to have, of course, on-off trippers. I know I have the mechanisms here listed. Pretty sure I have the on-off trippers listed here too. I'm looking here. I think I have other spare parts that are miscellaneous. And I'm sure, oh, there it is. The on-off trippers, the Intermatic, the I-156T1978A. These are the trippers for the on-off trippers of the Intermatic timers. Of course, have extra of those because they fail. One thing that I use, and I don't know if I mentioned this before in another podcast, but I was at Walmart and I bought a tackle box. This is like for fishing. Of course, you should know what that is if you fish or if you know anyone who fishes. This is great for these little small parts because I keep the on-off trippers for the Intermatic timer in there. I also keep extra bolts for the filter, clamps, little parts like that. Great to have them in the tackle box because then you can open it up and you have all the parts there without fumbling for them. I used to keep them in the plastic container, but then I would have trouble finding him. So the tackle box is great for these smaller little parts you can put in little compartments and you can organize it really well. Definitely would recommend having those. Let me see if I have some other. A blue floater would be great. You know, if you are at a pool and it needs a chlorine floater, or if you break it or if the lid breaks on it, you never want to put back in the pool the broken floater. So a lot of times the top of it will break off or snap and it won't lock any longer. It's really cheaply made. I hate to say that, but a lot of them aren't made really well. And so once you open and close them a lot, that top lid starts to break, and then it won't close any longer or lock in place. But if there's someone swimming and they knock the floater over, those tablets will fall out and stain the bottom. It's always good to have an extra blue floater so that you can actually swap it out right there on the spot. Something else that's popular here are the in-ground in-deck autofills. And so there's 2 different sizes. There's a 3/8 autofill and there's a 1/4 autofill. You definitely want to have those as well. Something that I carry also are floating animal thermometers. Sometimes a customer will ask me in the summer for a thermometer for their pool, and I'll just have one on my truck. I throw it in there. I know this sounds kind of weird to have all these parts, but you can carry all of these. You just need big enough plastic containers. One little trick that I do is I put them in old tablet buckets. And I keep some spare parts in the back of my truck too. No one would even know they're full of parts because they're kind of in the middle. But keeping those in there as well is a great way to have plenty of parts. Let me see some other parts here that are essential. Again, all the pump lid O-rings would be important. Then you want to have as many filter O-rings as possible for the filters out there. The only O-ring that I don't generally stock is the System 3 O-ring because it's pretty expensive and they last a long time. So I'll eventually replace those, but then I'll just order that one when I need it. You also want to have a lot of backwash parts. So I carry the pistons for the Hayward and Pentair, although Pentair changed their backwash piston a little bit and they have two different models now. And then you want to have, of course, the Pentair piston backwash kits for the O-rings. You can change those out. The worst situation you're going to be in is when you backwash a pool filter, you pull up on the piston and then you can't get it back down. Sometimes in a pinch, you can get a rubber mallet, or you can actually use the channel locks that I mentioned earlier and pound that backwash handle or push down with the channel locks with all your weight on it. That'll push it back in. But then it may still leak and it may not go back in well, and you may still have some leakage out of the backwash. You want to definitely have those O-rings on your truck so you can just pull the piston out and change those O-rings when you need to. And then let me see some other parts. Well, I have all the pool cleaner parts listed here as well. There's a lot of parts for the Creepy Crawly, and for the Polaris especially, you want to have a lot of Polaris parts if you do the Polaris cleaners. Hayward Navigator, I have all the parts here listed. You know, the turbine gear kit. I have some canisters listed here as well, leaf canisters and the O-rings for the canisters. And then, of course, you would want to carry all those spare parts for the cleaners that use a lot of the pool cleaner or the Hayward Navigator. I do have a full bottom conversion kit for a pool cleaner. I don't carry it on my truck. I keep it in my garage. And this is handy because if I get to a pool and I notice that the pool cleaner, the Hayward pool cleaner, that's actually the name of the cleaner, the Hayward pool cleaner, I call it the Poovernugan because that was the old model. If it's not working, I usually carry a spare cleaner in my truck. It's great to have 1 or 2 spare navigators in the back of your truck. And so when I get to a pool where the cleaner's not working, I'll just throw in one of my old navigators. I like the navigator because it's tiny and it'll fit in your truck pretty easily. So if you carry a spare navigator in the back of your truck, then you should be able to pick these up pretty easily from customers that are getting rid of their cleaners and you're changing them out. Just rebuild a few of these navigators to have them ready. I had at one point 20 of them in my garage, and one of my delivery guys, I gave them to him. I'm like, I don't need this many of them because I keep getting many more. So I gave him a whole bunch of navigators that were kind of working and not working. But having a spare cleaner is great. Spare hoses are great also to have in your truck. Generally, you don't need to buy those. If you have a cleaner that you're replacing, keep the hoses and just reuse those. And as long as you can find some that are similar in color. Bottom line is have plenty of spare parts. And again, this list is pretty extensive with Pool Corp part numbers. And I can, of course, send that over to you. And you can pick and choose the spare parts that you want. There's a lot of them listed here, but you want to carry all the essential ones. I get these clear containers from Walmart. I think they're like 16 by 20 is the size of them with the plastic lid. Put all these spare parts in them. I separate the O-rings in one container. I have cleaner parts in another, other parts in another. I like the clear containers because then you can kind of pick them up and kind of look to see where that part is. And if you have all these parts, sometimes it's hard to find them. And it's one of these things where if you take a part out, you definitely want to put one back in afterwards. So you want to buy a new part for it. But I like these containers as well because they fit really well in the back seat. You can stack one on the seat, one on the floor, maybe one more on top of it. And you'll have plenty of spare parts. And you're going to acquire parts as you're working out there. You'll know which parts you're going to need to stock up on. And you just kind of get so many parts that your spouse is going to get really upset with you because your garage will be half full of pool parts and spare parts. Some are too large to carry on your truck. I keep them in my garage. But you definitely want to have a good collection so you're not going back to the pool store for little nicky-knack parts and waiting in line for half an hour for something that you're kicking yourself for because you should have had it either in your garage or on your truck at that time. And you really don't want to stop in the middle of your pool route to get a part and go get it, bring it back to the pool, because that wastes so much time and energy that to eliminate that, make sure you have just about every spare part you need on your truck. And over time, you're going to develop, again, a really good inventory of parts on your pool truck if you do service long enough. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. And from there, you can, of course, click on the podcast icon on the menu and listen to those at your leisure. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. the bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.